If your cruise ship has a port of call in Warnemunde, you'll have the option to stay there, visit the city of Rostock, or take the train to sightsee in Berlin. We'll share the pros and cons of going to Berlin, whether or not we toured via a ship excursion, and the amazing sights we saw. Let's get started. Your first decision is, do you want to make the long trip to Berlin? If so, plan to travel by train for about 3 hours each way. At most, you'll have about 5 to 6 hours in the city to explore. Next, you'll need to decide on what the must-see sites are and the logistics of getting to them. We definitely wanted to see Berlin for its rich history, as it is still largely defined by its World War II years and the Cold War. The ship excursion uses a specially chartered train that you catch right outside the cruise port. While the ship excursion is more expensive, it may suit your schedule better. It will avoid the stress of making transit connections, and if your tour is delayed, the ship will wait for your return. Thus, we elected to buy the excursion. We felt Berlin's fascinating history would be challenging for us to learn on our own. If you choose to explore Berlin independently, the train station is a short 10-minute walk from the ship, with your destination being Berlin Hauptbahnhof or Berlin HBF. Also, you need to be very clear on the ship's all-aboard time and allow a cushion for possible delays and connections in the city. You may also want to employ a good Berlin tour guide who can make the city's story come to life. As we arrived at Berlin HBF, we saw that it is a massive modern railway station in the heart of Berlin. The station has 5 floors, but its open layout made it easy to navigate. For reference, the main floor is level 0 with 2 levels below ground. The cruise ship train, as well as most other trains from Warnemunde, arrive on the underground level 2, so we went up 2 flights of escalators so that we could begin our tour of Berlin. As we exited the train station, we saw the Reichstag in the distance. The Reichstag is the heart of Germany's government, and it's where the Bundestag, the lower house of parliament, meets to govern the nation. This building was a powerful symbol in World War II, and thus a prime target for the Allied bombers. After the war, the Berlin Wall also ran right behind the Reichstag. The Reichstag's cupola rises 150 feet above ground. Inside the dome, there is a cone of 360 mirrors that reflect the natural light into the legislative chamber below. There's also an opening at the top that allows air to circulate. You can climb the spiral ramp to the top of the dome for spectacular views of Berlin. Entering the Reichstag is free, but it requires a reservation. This is a must-see site that unfortunately was not part of our cruise excursion itinerary. The first part of our tour was a drive through Berlin. We passed Bellevue Palace, the official residence of the President of Germany. Then we passed the Victory Column. It's topped with a golden statue. The monument commemorates Prussian military victories over France, Denmark, and Austria. Those triumphs set up Prussia as a world power in the late 1800s. We also drove by the Women in the Resistance Against National Socialism exhibit that is currently part of the German Resistance Memorial Center. This exhibit focuses on female resistance fighters, one of which was Marlene Dietrich, who were persecuted by the National Socialist unjust justice system. Our bus drive also included various city landmarks that display remaining portions of the Berlin Wall. They can be block-long sections or simply tiny fragments on a street corner. We also passed the Topography of Terror Museum. It is found on the nerve center of the Gestapo and SS headquarters during the Nazi regime. The museum hosts a modern documentation center along with an outdoor exhibit, and it tells a powerful story in the place where it all happened. Our first stop was at the Museum of the Wall at Checkpoint Charlie. This is near the site of the former East-West border checkpoint. The guard station here is a reconstruction. There are also big posters of American and Soviet guards facing each other to guard their section of the city and reminding residents just exactly where they were. We spent about 30 minutes here, but you could easily spend an hour or more simply absorbing the history. Checkpoint Charlie is the most famous of the 8 places where you could legally cross between East and West Berlin. In general, Westerners could temporarily enter East Berlin, but not vice versa. The museum also includes stories of brave Cold War escapes, as well as historical footage of the checkpoint's operations. Our second stop, another must-see site, was the Brandenburg Gate, which is one of Berlin's most famous landmarks. We spent about 30 minutes marveling at the massive columned gateway at the former border of East and West Berlin. It is the last survivor of the 14 original gates in Berlin's old city wall. And from 1961 to 1989, the gate stood in no man's land between East and West, completely off limits to all. Thus, it is the symbol of Berlin, of its Cold War division and its reunification. At the top of the Brandenburg Gate is the majestic 4-horse chariot driven by the goddess of peace. We then ate an authentic German lunch, boiled potatoes, sausages, Wiener Schnitzel, and beer. Kurfürstendamm, or Kudamm, is Germany's most famous shopping boulevard. We strolled along this broad, tree-lined avenue and admired the broken chain sculpture. It represents the intertwining of a divided Berlin. This long boulevard is considered the Champs-Élysées of Berlin and is lined with shops, houses, hotels, and restaurants. Also in Kudamm is the Kaiser Wilhelm Memorial Church that was originally built in the 1890s. It was badly damaged in a bombing raid in 1943, and the damaged spire of the old church is the only thing that's been retained. We spent about 30 minutes touring the Kudamm. From Kudamm, we drove to the Allied Museum. This museum tells the story of the early days of the Cold War. It showcases the U.S., British, and French presence in Berlin from 1945 to 1994. It's here that you'll find the original Checkpoint Charlie guardhouse, a Berlin Wall watchtower, and an American spy tunnel. The Memorial to the Murdered Jews of Europe, a Holocaust memorial with 2,711 symbolic coffin-shaped pillars that covers an entire city block. For me, it was another must-see in Berlin. It commemorates the 6 million Jews who were killed by the Nazis during World War II. It's a powerful sight, and we were able to walk between the pillars. Some believe the increasing height of the pillars represent the decreasing right of the Jewish people. Another interpretation is that as you walk through the exhibit, you go from being visible to completely disappearing, and stands for the disappearance of the Jews. We then stopped for about 30 minutes at Bebelplatz, the square of the books. Frederick the Great built this square to show off Prussian ideals: education, arts, improvement of the individual, and a tolerance for different groups. Humboldt University, one of Europe's greatest, anchors the north end of the plaza. The Alte Bibliothek, or Berlin's old library, anchors the west end of the plaza. The east side is anchored by the National Opera. And immediately south of the opera is the green-domed St. Hedwig's Church, nicknamed the Upside-Down Teacup, a symbol of religious and cultural tolerance. But the centerpiece of the plaza is a glass window in the pavement, a room of empty bookshelves. This book-burning memorial commemorates the notorious event where staff and students from the university built a bonfire, and into the flames they threw 20,000 newly forbidden books. Overseeing it all was the Nazi propaganda leader, Joseph Goebbels. In the distance, we saw the red and white spire of the TV tower that marks the end of Berlin's main axis. It is most famously known for its Pope's Revenge. When the sun shines on the tiled stainless steel dome, the reflection usually appears in the form of a Greek cross, believing the Christian symbol is a divine retaliation for the government's removal of crosses from all East Berlin churches. Since we visited on a rainy day, we did not get to see the Pope's revenge. Our last stop was at the Berlin War Memorial, which is another really must-see museum in Berlin. It's a docu-center with videos and displays, several outdoor exhibits, and a lone surviving stretch of an intact Berlin Wall section. We were there for 30 minutes, but you could easily spend 90 minutes or more as it is chock full of information. We learned how the wall went up, the brutal methods used to keep Easterners in, and the brave stories of people who risk everything to be free. The Berlin Wall was actually two walls, an outer 12-foot high concrete wall topped with barbed wire and a rounded pipe-like surface to discourage grappling hooks. The inner wall was lower profile, and sandwiched between was a no man's land, or a death strip between 30 and 160 feet wide. The death strip was an obstacle course of barbed wire, tire spike strips to stop cars, and other hellish devices. The wall was continually patrolled by East German soldiers leading German shepherds, and the watchtower's armed guards had orders shoot to kill. With our day coming to an end, we went back to the train station for the 3-hour ride to the ship. Our train had an unexpected delay of about 30 minutes due to an issue with another train on the tracks. This is a real example of why you need to plan for contingency if you take the tour of Berlin on your own. Next, we see a montage of the sights we experienced while we were in the city. Berlin was an amazing city, and we were happy to sightsee there. In fact, our ship excursion gave us a small taste of the city and its rich history. It made me want to go back for a longer visit to more fully explore the museums and sites we toured, as well as see the sites we did not get to, such as Museum Island or the Reichstag. Thanks for watching.